As I shared last week, I was at the international conference for Centers for Spiritual Living. I didn't really talk about it very much, but I'll tell you there were hundreds of people, I think over 600 people in attendance at this conference. There were ministers and there were practitioners and lay people and just anybody, but coming together to create energy and to share ideas and to collaborate on projects. And we elected new leaders, and quite frankly, we came together to experience the divine together. We have one mind, like-minded people all in the same room. It's powerful. And I really truly hope each of you find a way somehow to attend either one of these international conferences or a retreat or something sponsored by the Centers for Spiritual Living, and go be in the midst of hundreds of people, just like we are here sitting here today, but very much bigger. And one of the things that surprises first-time attendees at one of these conferences, a religious conference, is the number of women present and also the number of women in leadership. New Thought religions have a legacy of female leaders and teachers. Emma Curtis Hopkins and Myrtle Fillmore, and I mean just so many, I couldn't even name them all. And religious science was one of the first denominations to ordain women in North America. And the New Thought movement has long recognized the divine feminine that is the legacy of its female leaders and the consciousness that they demonstrated. It's always been honored in our teaching. And as our principles support the presence and existence of the one mind, we recognize the aspect of the divine feminine in each of us and the impact that it has on our lives. You have no idea how many times I have introduced myself as a minister and find people are still surprised that a woman can be a minister. It's 2020, people, I'm serious. And I know that there are some prominent religions, religious organizations that limit the roles that women can play, so I get it. But nonetheless, I still get surprised by that reaction that I'm a woman minister. And I guess I've been around this teaching so long that it doesn't surprise me at all, but I forget that I challenge gender stereotypes just by the role that I play as a woman minister. And that kind of leads me to the topic of gender in general. My topic today is Holy Divine Feminine, and this whole month is kind of about that. But one topic that I get questions a lot about, and it's actually getting a lot of press, is gender. I was at my cousin's birthday party, you may have seen it on Facebook, in Colorado last week, and the subject of gender came up in conversation. It was fascinating because I was standing there with a group of women basically my age, and there were 4 other mothers of young adults. And every single mother, every single one of us, were being schooled by our young adult children on the subject of gender. And if I remember correctly, 2 of the mothers had transgender children, and 2 had children who were non-gender conforming or gender non-conforming or gender fluid. And we were sharing experience that we had shared about learning gender neutral pronouns and how not to assume gender based on appearance and expression of the individual. And we were all discussing this so matter-of-factly, like it was just like part of the conversation. I was amazed at the common ground that we were sharing about gender. And I joked that, like, I think Siri or Alexa or whatever those ether people are that listens to our conversations, I think they do, because shortly after that conversation, maybe 2 days later, I came across an article about gender fluidity that I shared on social media. If you haven't read it, check it out on my Facebook page, because it was very instructional to me. It was just another layer of instruction. It was about a 13-year-old child whose gender at birth was male, but his gender expression is completely female. And he prefers the pronouns of he and him and his in direct conflict with his desire to express as a traditionally female child would express. And he was so clear and direct in his communication in this article. He was inspiring, and I couldn't help but share it. And maybe his article would be informing to you as well. But anyway, what I shared at the party that night was an idea that I've been thinking about for a couple of years. And I'll share it with you if you haven't heard me talk about it, because I think it's really fascinating. I think that it's my idea that my parents' generation, which some of you are in my parents' generation, I think that generation shattered the solid idea of racial differences in consciousness. You know, the generation older than me tackled the social issue of interracial marriage and desegregation, and that generation taught the world that race is on a continuum. And it doesn't really mean that we're different, but that we are in truth one human race. So I think that's what my mom's generation and my dad's generation worked through. And I think my generation, in turn, tackled the social issue of sexuality. You know, our generation stood in the face of discrimination and ridicule and taught the world that sexuality is on a continuum. And it doesn't really mean that we're different, but that we are, in truth, one human race experiencing sexuality in a variety of ways, but it's all love. It's all love. People may be gay, straight, bisexual, pansexual, whatever all those words are, but we are one, and it's all love. And I think my daughter's generation is tackling the social issue of gender expression and gender identity. And that generation is standing in the face of the idea that there are only two genders, male and female, and that everyone must conform to those ideas and those roles. They're teaching us that gender actually is on a continuum, both in identity and in expression. And it doesn't mean that we are different, but that we are in truth one human race expressing and experiencing gender in a variety of ways. And I encourage all of us to educate ourselves on this topic of gender and find our way to a place within ourselves where we understand the various expressions of gender that are showing up and a wide variety of gender identities that we are interacting with every day. Because the world is no longer black and white, gay and straight, male and female. We as human beings appreciate opposites and contrasts as we seek to understand, you know, complex concepts, but we are selling ourselves short when we try to pigeonhole everyone into these two distinct columns on any continuum of the human experience. The truth is that we are both masculine and feminine. We have within us the divine expression of sacred masculine energy and divine feminine energy. God is beyond gender and all aspects we consider gender, and it is all encompassed in the wholeness of spirit. So most of us grew up in a culture that viewed God as a man. However, this is not true of other cultures who have several gods and goddesses, and it was not the intended teaching of those who wrote the Hebrew Bible. Part of our learning about spirituality is releasing these kinds of perspectives that religion gave us when we were younger. Most of us are continuing to heal and release the idea of God as a man. So let's talk about God as a man for just a second. So traditionally, in ancient religions, the divine feminine was always a part of God. But when the Hebrews came along, as Cheryl pointed out in her it was in your meditation, right? If you missed meditation, you missed a little lesson on this. But she pointed out that when the Hebrews came along, things changed because the Hebrews are recognized in the ancient world as the people of one God. Of one God. Instead of separating the feminine and masculine traits and characteristics of God into different deities, which is what the Eastern religions did, the mythologies and all of that, they recognized and worshiped them as one in the Hebrew religion. The divine feminine is a key component to their understanding of God, right? And they honor the many facets of spirit with words in the original Bible like El and Eloah and Elohim. And that's masculine, feminine, and plural. But they're all aspects of the one God. But all these words were translated into English as God and placed in the text with masculine pronouns because the masculine pronouns were the inclusive terms of the time the Bible was written, referring to all human race as man or mankind. So we lost the divine feminine in that interpretation. Do you see what happened, right? So over time, the meaning developed into God as a man, and the feminine aspects of God kind of slipped from awareness. Yet allowing the feminine aspects of God to fade away, we as a human race are left to figure out, how do we allow our feminine qualities to be honored and embraced and to be holy, right? So today I want to point out that our relationship with Spirit can deepen when we recognize and celebrate the divine feminine as an integral attribute to the creators that we all are. So if we're viewing God as a man, we lose sight of all that God is. To associate the masculine and feminine energies as specific to male and female genders, that's limiting the belief of who we are and what we are becoming. As individualized expressions of the one, we inherently hold all the qualities, all the potential and the power of God within us. God is androgynous, having both masculine and feminine power, but masculine and feminine energy and abilities. As beings of light, we have to accept that all of nature, all of God is divine, and it is all ours. It's all ours. So we have to agree that we have within us both masculine and feminine power, masculine and feminine energy and abilities. When we honor the feminine in God, we honor it in ourselves, and we readily appreciate this aspect of God in others. So we have to utilize the gifts that we have and nurture our soul's development in these feminine ways. See, I think life is a long journey of figuring out the truth that we are both masculine and feminine. We are learning to approach life with the correct energy at the correct time. And we can get into a lot of messes when we start trying to solve something that needs feminine energy with masculine energy, or masculine energy when it needs feminine energy, or vice versa. I might have said it the same way twice. It's about learning to master the balance of these two types of energies within ourselves. Here's what the science of mind teaches. Life is androgynous, i.e. it contains within itself both the masculine and the feminine factors. The male and the female of creation come from one principle. All come from the one, and all will return to the one. All are now in the one and will forever remain in the one. Sorry, my brain just froze. In our organizational themes this month, this year, it's all about the divine feminine. And you can see when we get back to the slide, you'll see the kind of subtle female figure in the graphics. So perhaps you'll agree with me that our society does not tend to help us develop our feminine side. Even though we have it within us, we're not encouraged to grow that. You know, regardless of whether we're expressing our gender as male or female, we have within us that feminine. And we need those aspects to live a full life. See, we're taught to believe that competition is the only way to succeed. We're also taught to look at others as a potential threat and to kind of measure our weaknesses against their strengths and their strengths against our weaknesses. Kill or be killed, right? That's kind of what we're taught. And we're also taught that rational decision making is really the only way to make a decision. You know, just give me the facts. Just give me the facts. No matter what decision needs to be made, our masculine energy self wants to know the facts and the logic behind the choice that needs to be made. Our male side just wants to see the resume. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the role is, I just want to see the resume. You know, again, we need to know those strengths and weaknesses on paper. We need to understand that. And that's what it means to live completely in that side of ourselves without embracing the other side. But the divine feminine is grounded in spirituality. The divine feminine represents that connection to the part of your consciousness responsible for nurture and intuition and creation, community, sensuality, collaboration, empathy. Those are all the pieces of the divine feminine within you. And it's powerful. And when we can tap into our feminine side, we can have stronger relationships. And we know that stronger relationships lead to more satisfying personal lives and professional lives. So as we evolve Most of us are trying to understand that divine feminine within us. That's part of our growing. And as we heal our divide between ourselves and the rest of the human race, we begin to understand that if we always view someone else's success as a threat to our own, we're always going to stand in that separation. We're hurting ourselves because we're cutting people off from us. When we learn to harness our femininity, we begin to see ourselves as potential allies, potential mentors, helpers, circle members. We learn to trust our gut. We learn to listen to our intuition to show us the red flags, not the resume, right? So how do we begin to develop our feminine side? How do we know when we're leaning into this part of ourselves and grounding it? How do we know? So I want to share 8 different things that will be ideas for developing your feminine side. So if you're a note taker, start with number 1. The first one is honor your emotions. Honor your emotions. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Your emotions are one of the most powerful barometers about life. If you feel anger, feel anger. If you feel sadness, figure out why you're feeling sad, what's making you sad. Follow your heart's delight. Follow your joy. Allow yourself to cry and laugh out loud. Fearful emotions teach you where you're not strong enough. So listen to and honor your emotions. See, your harsh inner critic wants to shame you for the emotions that you feel. But your soft inner feminine voice is the encouraging voice of the divine feminine. Give yourself space to feel the emotions in your life freely and allow your feminine self to wipe your tears. Number 2, learn to love your body. Learn to love your body. We spent some time on this topic a few weeks ago. Your body reflects your own choices and your own truth. And when you love your body, it will teach you and inform you about so many things. So learn to hear what it's teaching you about your life. Your body will get restless in situations that are not good for you. And your body will relax when you're in the presence of love and acceptance. Paying attention to your physical cues is one way of tuning in to your divine feminine. The third one is develop and learn to trust your intuition. Your intuition. We're all intuitive, but some of us listen to our intuition better than others. How many times have you said to yourself, damn it, I knew better than to do that. I knew better. Or, wow, I knew this was going to be a great situation for me. I'm so glad I listened to my gut. You know so much more than you allow yourself to know. Sometimes it's an inconvenient time to know a thing, but when you know it, you know it. And our lives get dodgy when we know something and we don't follow our knowing. Tune in to that sensory body and feel that inner flinch, which is your inner no, and that inner surge of energy, which is your inner yes. When it's time to move closer, you'll lean in. That's your intuition coming into play. So let your intuition guide you into authentic decision making. Number 4, find your voice of truth. Find your voice. That strong feminine voice is a very strong voice. Soft strength can be spoken and heard. Yelling is an often ineffective method of communicating difficult things, but if you can find your strong voice of truth, you can set a boundary, you can explain yourself, you can find the courage to be transparent, even in difficult situations. So give your feminine side its own power voice and let yourself speak your truth. Number 5, have gratitude for all that life offers. See, we all have this universal image in our mind of a mother that can make a special occasion even when resources seem to be short, right? My mom tells a story that she didn't have the extra 25 cents to buy a birthday cake mix for my brother's birthday. And she tells us this story, but yet we can never remember a birthday that we didn't have a cake, that we didn't have a special time. She modeled for us gratitude about whatever was there. whatever we have. And that's that divine feminine coming out. Life itself is enough to be grateful for, and a divine mother knows that. Number 6, create sacred space. Create sacred space. The divine feminine leans into ritual. It's that part inside of you that awakens when I light the flames of faith. That part of you that sparks. It's the part of you that tears up at a baby blessing or at a wedding. It's the part of you that needs that holy ground. Cultivate that holy ground in your life. Light candles in your home when you pray or do spiritual practice. That divine feminine self will lean into soft music and let your soul melt into the divine nature of your feminine. And number 7, lean into your imagination. Remember what I said about logic being masculine? Give your feminine side a chance to imagine the life that it knows is possible. The creativity that wishes to be expressed is going to come into that imagination and will feed it. And again, silence that inner critic. Let yourself imagine. Be open and receptive to ideas. Spirit communicates through your imagination if you're open to it. And number 8, collaborate instead of compete. Your feminine side yearns to help others. This part of you wants to grow others and develop others and help them. Learn to pull people closer as you accomplish things in your life, and share those newly found skills with someone who is still developing, someone younger, perhaps less connected. Because when we collaborate, competition falls away and we share more fully and freely. And those are just 8 ways to bring your feminine energy within you. Because if we can balance ourselves and bring balance to our God selves, our lives are enriched. You know, we've all experienced good that's come to us from our masculine side and our feminine side. It's just making sure that we stay in balance. Both of those things flow through all of us. And when we exercise both of them, our lives are richer. See, when we create, we have to bring both our fathering and our mothering to it, to the things that we create. The things we create need the influence of both to flourish and thrive. One more quote from Ernest Holmes. Mankind coming from unity is both male and female, and has within each of them both attributes of reality. In some, the male predominates, and in others, the female. We have 2 distinct types in man and woman, but they are types of one fundamental principle, most equally balanced. The greatest men and women of the ages have belonged to this type, for it is a more complete balance between the 2, which are really one. Our world is crying for love and understanding. It's calling out to be nurtured and encircled and included and heard. So let's awaken our beloved divine feminine within us and meet the needs in our hearts and the hearts of those around us. Let us allow the gender-neutral God within us to express all its aspects through us, in us, and as us. Let us close with an affirmation. I am a being of love and light. Divine feminine energy flows through me, receiving and radiating love.